Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's insightful and learning event. I am your host, Gina Chikudi. I'm a product and project manager, and I'm here to make sure that we all have a wonderful interaction with your speakers and yourself. Before we kick off, I'm going to give a brief introduction of our first speaker, Andrew Sales. Andrew Sales will be talking about product manager versus product owner. What is the difference? Andrew says he's a principal consultant, SAFE program, and consultant trainer. Andrew is an experienced Agile consultant and previously led the Agile service practice across MEA for CA Technology. CA Technology is based in America. It's a multinational corporation based in New York, formerly Raleigh. Drawing on his diverse range of skills and experience from project management, software development, product management, and sales, Andrew has worked with many organizations to help them successfully establish better ways of working. He is passionate about continuous improvement and provide coaching to teams and leaders, supporting them in achieving improved outcome for their business and their customers. Andrew, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Regina. I will share my screen now. And hopefully you can see that. Just give me a thumbs up if you can see that.
Yep,
Perfect.
thank you. Yeah.
So again, thank you very much for inviting me to speak today. Thank you for the introduction as well, Regina. I work at Scaled Agile, so I'm a member of the framework team there, helping to support and evolve the Scaled Agile framework. And today I'm going to be speaking on the topic of Agile product delivery, specifically Agile product delivery at scale. And as part of that, I'm going to focus on the two critical roles of the product owner and the product manager. So maybe the best place to start is, why is Agile product delivery such an important topic? And what we're seeing is that if enterprises really want to thrive in this digital age, they need to be able to deliver innovative products and services faster than the competition. So Agile product delivery becomes a core competency for any organization that's looking to develop and thrive at business agility. And what we're seeing is it really requires two things. It requires a focus on the customer, as well as an ability to execute. And together, these two things ensure that we can create the right solutions for the right customers at the right time. And it's really this balance of customer focus and execution that is supported by the complementary roles of the product manager and the product owner. And that's what we're going to explore a little bit today. Now, when we think about Agile product delivery and how we achieve it, we recognize that there are three dimensions that enterprises need to be successful and develop proficiency in. So the first one we talk about is customer centricity and design thinking. Customer-centric organizations put the customer at the center of every decision they're making, and they use design thinking tools to make sure that the solutions they're developing are desirable, feasible, viable, and sustainable. But then we also need to be able to develop on a cadence and release on demand. Developing on a cadence, delivering value every iteration, every PI, ensuring that we can manage the inherent variability that exists in product development, and then releasing on demand, decoupled from that cadence, so we can provide value to our customers whenever they require it. And then the final dimension, DevOps and the continuous delivery pipeline. We need to build the infrastructure that's going to allow us to successfully deliver that value through the pipeline into the hands of the customer to actually realize the goal of delivering those innovative solutions. Now, achieving all those things isn't easy. And in SAFE, we identify two key product-based roles to help us do this. So we talk about product managers. They tend to focus on the strategy, helping to understand the customer needs, to support longer range and longer term planning. And then we also recognize the need for a product owner, focusing more on tactics and execution, working with the teams to clarify requirements and helping those teams successfully execute the program increments. And what we see is it's through the collaboration of these two roles that we get this balance between customer focus on the one hand and execution on the other hand. And we'll explore that in a few minutes as well. But one question we often get is whether these two sets of responsibilities could actually be managed and fulfilled by a single person. And the other question we often get is, why does SAFe separate these into two roles? And the answer to this question is it's simply a consequence of the scale that many organizations are working at. And let me explain what I mean by that. All solution development really starts with an agile team. And as everyone on this call knows, agile teams are cross-functional groups of individuals, typically 5 to 11 people. They can define, they can build, they can test, and they can deliver some kind of increment of value in a short time box. And of course, they're supported by two roles, the Scrum Master acting as an agile coach for the team, but also the product owner. And here the product owner is working alongside the team to define the work that needs to be done. They're acting as the customer representative for the team to support and answer any questions the team may have. They're ensuring the work of the team is appropriately prioritized. And of course, they're also ensuring that that work is aligned to the broader vision and the roadmap. Now, if the solutions we're building only require one or two of those agile teams, then potentially we may indeed have a single person fulfilling both the product owner role, as I just described it, and some of the additional product management responsibilities that you see on this slide. And this is a pattern that we've observed working well in these small scale situations. And some of these additional product management responsibilities, things like supporting product marketing activities, helping to enable the sales team and understand the go-to-market approach, reviewing any legal documents, and also being responsible for key financial decisions as just some examples. But of course, most of the organizations using SAFe are typically building much larger solutions. And when we start thinking about solution delivery at scale, we realize that it needs many, many agile teams to come together to work within a larger team of teams, what we call an agile release train in SAFe. And each agile release train, of course, is typically 50 to 125 people. They're long-lived, they're self-organizing, they plan, they commit, they execute together. And this may mean that we have as many as 10 to 12 agile teams on a single agile release train. And of course, what's special about the agile release train is that they're all working towards a common mission. They're aligned through a backlog of features called the program backlog. In other words, they're working together to build a single solution. And it's when we're working at this scale, particularly given the fact that in many times the teams on the agile release train will be geographically distributed as well, that we recognize the huge benefit in creating an extended product management team. And this extended team includes both product managers, we'll talk about what they do very shortly, and also product owners, dig a bit deeper into their role as well. And by having this extended team, this is going to allow us to really balance the concerns of aligning the entire art to a single vision, mission, set of features in the program backlog. That's the responsibility of the product manager, but also giving us the ability to execute successfully and take the fast, responsive, decentralized decisions that we need within each team. And that's the responsibility of the product owner. Now, one question we often get when we start working at this scale is, what is the right number of people in the roles here? And what we've often observed in the field is if we don't have the right number of people in the roles, often bottlenecks will emerge that are really going to limit our velocity. So we need the number of product managers, product owners, and agile teams to be roughly in the right balance to help us effectively steer the agile release train to meet its goals. Otherwise, the system's going to slow down. We'll be constantly waiting for answers to questions, for definitions, for clarification, and for the acceptance of the work that we're doing. So if you have a look at the slide here, this is the recommended fan-out model that we've seen work fairly well. And what we've seen work also fairly well in terms of the numbers is that each product manager can support typically up to 4 product owners, each of whom could perhaps support 1 or 2 agile teams. Of course, in reality, many people have the luxury to be able to dedicate a product owner to each agile team. And as we increase the number of agile teams, we therefore want to increase the number of product owners and consequently product managers as well. So that's just a bit of background, really, in terms of the need to recognize these two roles when we start to scale solution delivery. But what I want to do now is dig a little bit deeper and explore how we see the responsibilities of these roles contrasting from one to the other. And keep in mind, these are particularly the responsibilities that we're thinking about when we're working with agile product delivery at scale. So what I've put on the slide here is I try to categorize the responsibilities of the product owner in SAFe into 4 categories. And if you start in the top left-hand corner, the preparation and participation in PI planning. So as we know, PI planning is this key event within SAFe. Every 10 to 12 weeks, the whole Agile release train, all the teams come together to hear the vision, to get aligned to the work they need to do, and build a plan they can commit to. As an extended member of this product management team, the product owner is going to be heavily involved in the preparation for this event. So helping to make sure that we have refined the program backlog. During the event, the product owner is going to be involved with working with the teams to help them define their stories, providing clarifications to questions they may have, helping them with estimating the work and sequencing it appropriately. And of course, during the event itself, the PO is going to be collaborating with other teams to try and bring together a plan that we feel we can commit to. And of course, the entire Agile team, which includes the product owner, is then going to work together to describe a set of objectives that describe that work over the PI. Then in terms of iteration execution, extensive responsibilities here for the product owner. Maintaining the backlog is one of them. They're primarily responsible for making sure the backlog is built, edited, maintained, and prioritized at all times, alongside thinking about value and dependencies with other teams. Iteration planning, they're going to be communicating the details of the stories to the teams, helping the teams understand, clarify any questions, and helping them to reach and define an iteration plan. And then, of course, throughout the iteration, they're going to be accepting stories, not only making sure the stories meet the acceptance criteria, but also ensuring their quality and their fit for purpose as well. And then finally, as part of iteration execution, they're going to play a very prominent role in the team demos and the team retrospectives, presenting to stakeholders some of the work the team have done and thinking about how they can help the teams to improve their processes. And then, of course, because we're operating at scale, Agile teams are working together to execute and deliver a larger solution. The product owners have a huge role to play within program execution. So during the PI, they're coordinating with other product owners, helping to manage dependencies, helping to negotiate scope, and also taking part in the system demo where all of the teams bring their work together every iteration to show some of the most important work and take feedback from stakeholders as well. And then finally, the inspect and adapt. At the end of the program increment, all the teams are coming together to think about how they can improve their processes. The product owner is playing a key role here to really help the teams define opportunities for process improvements to improve the quality, the speed, the value they're delivering to customers. So at scale, we see immediately that the product owner has a huge set of responsibilities. They're working closely not only with their team, but with the other teams as well. And because they're working so closely with the team, often we see people from roles such as business analysts or subject matter experts, those who have the real technical domain knowledge, fulfilling these roles as well. And then I want to contrast the product manager role. And just in the same way, the responsibilities at scale here are also fairly extensive. So one of the first things the product manager needs to be concerned with is, are we meeting our business goals? All the products and solutions that we develop have to meet the business goals that have been established by the portfolio. And the product manager is primarily responsible for that. So are we creating feasible, sustainable products? Do we have a clear model of how this product delivers value to our customers? Do we understand the cost structure? Is there a clear understanding of the return on investment? Do we understand how we're going to price and market this product when we provide it to our customers? And then in the bottom left, get it built. Product managers are always collaborating with the Agile release train to make sure they're building the required functionality. So this requires the product manager to understand the customer needs, to develop and communicate a vision and roadmap, of course, to prioritize the features in the program backlog, and to get involved with activities such as PI planning in order to communicate those priorities. And of course, just like the product owners, they also play a key role in other events such as the system demos and the inspect and adapt as well.
Just tell more.
And then get it off the shelf in the top right. one thing that we see again and again, a tension that exists, is how do we deliver value as quickly as the customers demand it, while making sure that we work effectively with the internal stakeholders as well. So product managers have to work closely with marketing to make sure that we have in place all the activities we need to successfully market our products. They've got to work with the sales enablement teams to make sure we've clearly defined our go-to-market strategy. They've got to enable any channels that we have for actually distributing these products and services. And of course, they've got to support the partners that we may have as well in understanding how these products and services support the work they do. And then finally, in the bottom right, leveraging support. Product management also have a key role to play to make sure that these new products are supported throughout their life cycle as well. So they're working very closely with the customer experience teams, with internal support teams, with legal and compliance teams to make sure the products meet the necessary requirements and that they're well supported throughout their life cycle. So again, I hope what's coming across clear here is that all of these activities described here on this slide, as well as the ones on the previous slide, are simply too much for one person to deliver themselves. What we need is a product management team where we have clear ownership over the roles and responsibilities that we're playing. So now that we've had a look at these two critical sets of roles, the product owner playing this tactical execution role, the product manager taking this key strategic role, one of the things I wanted to conclude with is just sharing the need for collaborations between these two groups. Because what we've seen effective in organizations who are succeeding with SAFe is they have these two roles collaborating very successfully. And what I wanted to do just to finish is to highlight some of the opportunities for collaborations between these roles and describe what healthy collaboration looks like. So what I've got on the slide here is a summary of all the events that take place within SAFe. In that little circle in the middle, we have the events that the teams are executing every iteration, every 2 weeks. And around the outside, we have the events that the larger Agile release train is executing. And what I've done is highlight 4 of the key events where I see real benefits in emphasizing the importance of good collaboration between product owners and product managers. And I'm just going to step through each of those now. So we talked a little bit about PI planning, and we talked about how the preparation for this event is an important responsibility for both of those roles. But what does good collaboration look like between those two roles? So what I've observed is when they come together to work collaboratively to update the vision and roadmap ahead of this event, you have the product manager driving the possibilities of what the organization wants to achieve. But on the other side, you have the product owner providing some of the realism around the capabilities and the capacity of what the teams can deliver. And by coming together, we create a roadmap and a vision that is both ambitious, but also achievable. Leading up to PI planning, they're collaborating to make sure the wider business and the teams are aligned to this vision and roadmap. So collectively, they're sharing that message across the organization. And as product management start to create the features in the program backlog, the product owners are there asking key clarifying questions, making sure the features have all the necessary detail ahead of when the product owners take it to the teams. And then, of course, once the product owners start taking these features to the teams to socialize them ahead of the event, they're there to clarify any misunderstandings. They're coming back to the product managers with any questions that they might have. And then another key collaboration that we observe here is product owners and product managers coming together to discuss capacity allocation. How much of the available time should we allocate to new business features, which will obviously delight our product managers, but also how much capacity should we allocate to maintaining the technical integrity of our solutions? Something that's very close to the product owners. They want to make sure that we're maintaining the technical integrity, that we're not moving too fast without paying due care and attention to that. So there's a nice, healthy conflict and a discussion that takes place there. And then during PI planning, this collaboration continues. So some of the specific opportunities for collaboration. The POs, of course, are working with the teams to create the plan to deliver the work that is needed. And as they're doing that, challenges and additional work is likely emerging. So the PO is then helping to drive constructive discussions with product management. Where can we negotiate scope? How can we alter some of the key milestones? How can we bring together some of the concerns we have to make sure we create a plan that really maximizes the outcomes across the entire Agile release train. And it's really this healthy tension that helps us not only progress and deliver on a strategy, but also build a plan that can be executed successfully. And if you don't have these two roles as separate individuals, you lose the opportunity to build and create this healthy tension. And one of the things we often see is if we want to do this effectively, either side needs to appreciate the point of view of the other side. So product management need to listen to what the product owners are saying when they raise challenges, but product owners also need to be open to challenging the teams to be ambitious, to think about how they can stretch themselves to deliver the needs of the customer. And then, of course, we come out of PI planning with a plan, but it's one thing creating a plan, it's another thing executing it. And as we start executing the plan, we know things are going to arise that we couldn't have foreseen. And what we see in terms of Agile release trains which can execute successfully is this collaboration between the product manager and the product owner continues throughout the PI itself. And one of the events where we drive this collaboration is called the PO sync, the product owner sync. Typically takes place once a week, 30 to 60 minutes long. And this is where the collaboration is taking place to understand how we might need to change the plan that we're delivering. So for example, if the data is telling us that we're not on track to deliver our objectives, the PMs need to be open to adjusting the scope, adjusting their expectations and the expectations of the business. But on the other hand, if the feedback is telling us that we're building the wrong thing, the product owners may need to go back to the team and steer them in a different direction, regardless of the work that has taken place so far. So again, this event is surfacing those critical conversations and helping to drive that collaboration between these two key roles. And then the final event that I want to mention is the system demo. And as you may know, the system demo is a special demo that we do every iteration, so every 2 weeks, where we bring together the work across all the teams in an integrated fashion to really show the progress we're making. And it's a critical event for everyone, but specifically critical for the product owners and product managers, since this is how they're going to assess the current state of the solution, but also how they're going to gather feedback from their stakeholders and customers. And it's also a great event for ensuring the product owners and product managers are aligned, because together they're going to facilitate this. So ahead of running this event, what does good collaboration look like? They're coming together, they're agreeing on the features that they're going to show, they're going to discuss which areas they may want to get feedback on, they're going to reinforce the importance of the work they're doing and how it aligns to delivering the strategy. But then also importantly, as they start to run the event, they're going to decide together, how do we action the feedback that we're getting? Is it longer term feedback that the product manager needs to action in terms of adjustments to the roadmap and vision? Or is it shorter term feedback that the product owners need to action in terms of steering the team in a slightly different direction? And again, there's data coming out of this that really drives the opportunity for the product owners and product managers to get together to collaborate and discuss how best we can meet the needs of the customers. So I just want to say a few things in conclusion and sum up a few success patterns that we've seen. So hopefully at this point, you've seen that at scale, there really is a need for these two roles. They both have extensive responsibilities that are overlapping but different, and they have this strong need to collaborate, and there's opportunities to do that. But there's some good patterns that really describe what successful collaboration looks like. So the first one is alignment. We need these roles to be aligned on strategy and execution. This doesn't mean that they have to always agree, and privately there may be some healthy conflict and tension, we've talked about that, but they need to arrive at a position where they can communicate an aligned message to the wider organization. We also need them to have real openness and transparency between them. So as challenges emerge in the teams, we want the product owner to feel they can take those to the product manager as soon as they arrive. And if the product manager discovers that actually the customers are telling us we're on the wrong track and we need to pivot the teams, they should equally be transparent in that information as well. And of course, this is supported by regular communication. We've seen the PO sync as a good opportunity for this, but we also want the product managers and product owners to form a tight-knit group where there's dialogue going backwards and forwards constantly throughout the PI. We also need to make sure that there's clear authority around their areas of content that they manage. So the product owner is responsible for the team backlog. They're the ones responsible for guiding the teams to develop iteration goals every 2 weeks. helping to define their objectives that describe the work across the PI. The product manager, on the other hand, has responsibility for the program backlog. So we need to make these responsibilities clear. We need to give each product authority the time and space to make decisions in their particular domains. And this clear understanding of where their authority lies is going to help us with decentralized decision-making. We don't want every decision the product owner makes to have to come back up to the product manager for a yes or a no. We want to be able to decentralize as much as possible so they can be taking the frequent decisions that the team need on a day-to-day basis. The infrequent decisions that are taken on a less often basis are the ones that the product manager, of course, may be taking, the ones that have a slightly larger impact. And then finally, just the final bullet point on here, working together, both of these roles need to help us with this joint commitment to customer centricity. Everything they need to do, they need to talk about with the customer in mind. They need to help the teams and the art think about how their decisions are impacting the value that's being delivered to those customers. So in conclusion, before I hand it back to Regina, at scale, Agile product delivery is complex. It contains numerous different responsibilities and things that we need to look over, responsibilities which are simply too much for one person. Instead, what we need is to create this effective product management team where the product owner can gain proficiency and excellence in their role, and the product manager can do the same. And it's really the healthy and ongoing collaboration between these two roles that is going to be the cornerstone to success as the organization looks to improve its Agile product delivery competencies. So looking forward to taking some questions later, but I'm going to hand it back to Regina now to hand off to the next speaker.
Thank you so much, Andrew. That was awesome. Thank you so much. So without wasting time, we'll go over to the next speaker, which is George Eze. She is a product owner, a product manager, and an analytics manager with Vodafone. She's going to be talking about data as a product. Just a brief intro about she is an agile product management with years of practical experience across multiple data and business intelligence roles. She, please, can you just come on, please? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Nice to be here. I'm just going to share my slides. Just bear with me one moment, please. Let me know if you can see that clearly. Can you see that clearly?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. So yeah, thank you for the introduction, Regina. As Regina said, I'm a data technical product owner. And the topic for today is talking about data as a product. And so without further ado, when people think about products, right, you would normally think about things you buy in the grocery store. Maybe it's groceries, food stuff, or more so sometimes when people think about products, if you're, depending on what generation you're talking to, they're thinking about technology products, right? So like, gadgets, iPhones, iPads, things like that. Even, doorbells now, like your Ring doorbell, just gadgets in general. But has anyone ever thought about data as a product, right? And I asked this question because, data is everywhere, right? And when you talk about data as a product, the raw product in itself is data. But for it to become something of like a product that can be utilized, it has to be processed, right? And when you process this data, it becomes, you can either process it and it becomes consumed in the form of a report. It could be consumed in the form of a dashboard. And when I say dashboard, it's not like this airplane cockpit here, not that kind of dashboard. I'm talking about the dashboard in the top right corner. And sometimes, you might have your customer asking for like a data dump, right? Which is like in the form of an Excel sheet in the bottom right corner. And there are other kinds of ways that people would request for data or the product that the data is going to be processed into. So the question is, why view data as a product? Like I said earlier, data is everywhere, right? It's ubiquitous. It's now embedded in our system, in our society, and in our lives. Everything that we pretty much engage with that is electronic produces data in one way or the other. But then what are you going to do with all of this data? Right? Okay, all of this data is being processed, but what are you going to do with it? It's not useful unless it's processed into something that then translates into value. And that's what businesses are constantly trying to do. They're constantly trying to leverage their data, or data in general, depending. It might be theirs, it might be external, to kind of give themselves an advantage. And here I have a picture of these guys working on a rig. And you might ask, what's the relationship between, guys working on a rig, drilling oil and data? And as you may have heard, people say that there are things like that cliche saying of, data is the new oil. But what they really mean is, like, just like crude oil, it needs to be processed into petroleum products. So data needs to be processed into something that's going to give value. And the way it's consumed is in the form of a report, a dashboard, things like that. And when that happens, and they have the final product, whether it's the customer, internal customer, external customer, that final product is meant to give them some kind of insight, some kind of leverage, right? Because if they're not doing this, what's the point of that? What's the point of having all of this data, and you cannot create any value? You cannot do anything with it. So that's the gist of it. And so there's this pyramid called the DIKW pyramid in data speak, right? And the best way to look at this is looking at it from the base going up to the top, right? And so it just gives you an idea of how, we go from just raw data to something tangible and valuable. So here you have like data at the base. It's raw. You just have red and a bunch of numbers. Doesn't really mean anything. But when it's processed and it becomes meaningful, it could mean something like south-facing, traffic light on the corner of Pitt and George Streets has turned red. So now that's information, but still it's not enough. Okay, it's turned red, and then what? But in context, if you are driving and you're heading towards that traffic light, and you happen to be at that location, then obviously it's meaningful to you. You now have that knowledge, and with that knowledge, when you apply it, you then stop your car, because obviously when you see a red light, you stop. And so that is a very, I would say, very basic and comprehensive way to understand how data, transforms into information, into knowledge, into wisdom. Obviously, in a business context, it might be a little bit more convoluted than that. And so what does value mean in terms of data? And in a business context, usually is what the business says value is. It depends on what the business is looking for. Usually it's in line with the business's vision. It could be profits, it could be revenue, it could be sales, it could be cost savings. It could be anything that the business is focused on. And so they would use data for that purpose, right? And so that's the gist of it in terms of value. And so how does this happen, right? Okay, data goes, we understand that data moves into information, knowledge, into wisdom, value creation. But then there are things that happen under the hood that, we need to kind of like talk about, right? And I've kind of split it into three things: tooling, skill set, and processes. So broadly speaking, I'd say there are like two sets of skills. You need your soft skills and you need your technical skills. Now, I think Andy touched on that in his presentation. So the technical skills are people like, your developers who are writing code and things like that. The softer skills are people like your product manager / product owner, sort of, in terms of people who are liaising with the customer, getting their requirements, eliciting their requirements, not just taking down what the customer says, but really understanding what it is that the customer is after and getting it down into what the customer actually needs. Now, this customer might be internal, might be external, right? And so that's for the softer skills. On the technical skills are the people, like I said, who write the code and things like that. Usually they would use things like, there are different tools they would use. And, some of you might recognize some of the tools here, like SQL Server to kind of query databases, Tableau for visualization, SAP Business Objects for also kind of reporting and things like that. So I say this to say that, for it to go from data to go from what it is, from its raw form to wisdom or value or whatever you want to call it, a lot really goes on under the hood, right? And so that's in terms of tooling and skill set. But then also in terms of processes, and this kind of overlaps with what Andy was saying, is that, sometimes because you're looking at data as a product, you might want to approach it using maybe agile methodology. I can understand some people will use skilled agile framework, but in this context, I'm talking about adopting agile methodology to deliver the required product. And like I said, there's requirements elicitation, and you have all of these things going into a user story. The user story is put in the backlog, and things are prioritized, and then the Scrum team will deliver on the product in a single sprint or multiple sprints, because sometimes you might be delivering a data product. Maybe it's a data dump, maybe it's quicker, maybe it's a convoluted report or dashboard. It might take more than one sprint. Usually one sprint is in some organizations, one sprint is 2 weeks. In some others, it might be longer. So it might, assuming it's 2 weeks, a 2-week sprint, it might be multiple 2-week sprints to deliver the product, depending on what's going on. And so in doing this, you have your customers, right? And you're delivering this functionality. And by way of agile methodology, you deliver a functionality, and you kind of liaise with the customers, understand if you're heading in the right direction. So there's constant back and forth liaison between, developing that product and what the customer wants. You're talking to them, you're saying, okay, I've done this way. They're like, okay, that's not quite what I was after. It gives you time to adjust, right? Because it's an iterative process. And so I say this to say that the customers, be it internal, external, they need to be kept abreast of what is going on. And so in doing all of this, why would one want to do all of this, right? Why will a business want to treat data as a product? And why would they go through all of this? Because it gives them a competitive advantage, right? When businesses leverage data, it gives them a competitive advantage. It gives them, depending on the nature of the business, it gives them deeper knowledge and understanding of their customer. It can help to streamline processes and improve profitability. I mean, the list goes on, as you can imagine, right? For all of this to happen, it's a joint effort, It's joint effort required to deliver the value from data. It has to be something that is cultural, right? I would say, in a utopian state, everyone is looking at data as, okay, this thing where we can derive value from. And so it's not just a bunch of tech guys writing code or doing whatever. It's business people understanding that data is important. It's also the technical guys. It's just everybody within the organization understanding the importance of it, and joining forces to kind of really realize that value. So it's an all-encompassing exercise, so to speak. So that kind of brings me to the end of my presentation. I've tried to make it as simple and straightforward as possible, but I'm hoping that as a takeaway, you understand why data can be viewed. That data would be viewed as a product, how it is a tangible product for customers, and how they can see, see value and insights for their use, and not just customers in terms of business, but just in general. So Without further ado, I will pass you on back to Regina. That brings us to the end of my presentation. Thank you so
Wow.
much.
Wow, thank you so much. That was fantastic. That's a great insight, knowing what data is all about, and how important it is for everyone in the organization to understand what data is all about. Thank you so much. So, without wasting time, I want you all to please keep putting your question on the chat box while we bring in the third speaker, William Cosina. William is a business agility major program management, skilled agile consultant, trainer, and a coach. He'll be talking about product owner role in strategic execution. William is the CEO at Lean Icon Technology. He has been consulting and coaching on Agile and Scaled Agile framework. He has developed and delivered tailored solutions to clients in a large number of verticals in teaching and coaching. William uses an interactive style that encourages participation. He asks searching questions and encourages helpful feedback which contribute to the delegates' ability to apply their learning in their workplace. Let's just welcome William.
Thank you, Gina.
Thank you.
And welcome, everyone. Can you all see my slide? Product owner role in strategy execution.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much for the confirmation. I think it's been a marathon of interesting conversations all around the product owner role. And we all agree the product owner role is very critical, strategic, and important to the delivery of value to all organizations. And if you're working in the product owner role, you know how challenging it is to serve as a product owner, working across the operational team, working with the development team, and also working upwards because you are. It's more of a triangle. You're speaking to the leadership team, the directors, and making sure that you're aligning with the strategy that the organization is talking about. You also coming down to the operations, making sure that that conversation is being had when the product goes live and is in use. As well, the development team, you need to keep them moving constantly. My conversation will be aligning that strategy, and I'll touch a little bit on operations, but I think my colleagues have done a great job on talking about the product owner role, talking about data and product owner, and I would like to thank them. I will focus on the area of strategy. So, as a product owner, constantly you are in an organization where you are always, it's all about, am I delivering value? Am I delivering towards profit? If you're in a charity, you're looking at how sustainable can you be as an organization. I've trained charities, and the big question here is, are we going to be around in the next 3 months? And how much more the pandemic has made most organizations rethink about their existence as an organization. So currently, if you were employed as a product owner, having a good understanding of Andrew's slides, being a product owner in a large organization, or coming in as a product owner working in a small organization, the conversation is no different. We need to make profit. We need to stay sustainable. And we need to constantly answer to the going concern of our stakeholders or shareholders. So whether in a large or small organization, it's always critical to answer to the bottom line. Whether we're delivering value to the customer or to the internal customer or external customer, we are focused on profit, sustainability, and finally, delivering to the stakeholders. Two areas that would help us take a look at this will be strategy planning and strategy execution. I'll focus on these two key areas and I'll drive home some of the artifacts, events that would help you with these two areas. When we talk about strategy planning, is it all about SWOT analysis? I think a lot of the folks who've done MBA would say, William, strategy planning is all about SWOT analysis. There's more to it. Is it the right time to start thinking about our strategy? And if we have to start thinking about our strategy now, what should we be doing? Should we look at the current operating model and what should be our target operating model? Let's form a team to help us put together our strategy. And it's an iterative process. It's not a one-time activity. The classical moment in the let's say pre-2000s was let's get a strategy, more like the military. Let's attack, and hopefully our strategy works. But now it's always an iterative activity, and it's not a one-time activity. So we want to understand first our internal environment. When I mean our internal environment, when looking at strategy, we can use tools like our most analysis or our VV most. What's our vision? What's our values? What's our mission? What's our objectives as an organization? And then what is our current tactics? The tactics would define how uh, how we would be able to execute our strategy. And if we understand those elements, the vision, the values, the mission, the objectives, the strategy, and the current tactics, if they are favorable and everyone in the organization can align to them, then those are key strengths for us as an organization. But if you speak to one or two or three people and you ask them, what's the current mission of the organization is, and they start wondering what the real mission, or you ask someone, what's the current values of the organization, and they really can't tell you, then that vision, that mission statement is questionable. It becomes a weakness to the organization. Secondly, as well, to understand our organization from an internal perspective, we could carry out a resource audit. And when we're looking at a resource audit, we are looking at all the infrastructure. We're also looking at our current resources, the teams we have. We're looking at our knowledge. And also, we could look at our finances. If they are all in the positive area where our finances are in the green, okay, we have some monies in the bank, we've got some reserve. In terms of staff, we've got the right people, they are motivated, they are willing to learn, then those are all strengths to the organization. Alternatively, when there are no funds in the bank and we are in the red, nearing bankruptcy, everyone will be wary of such an organization. Or we don't have dedicated staff who will be willing and motivated to work. All those could be considered as weaknesses for our organization. So we've just looked at two tools to analyze our internal organization. We've looked at the VV most, and we've also looked at the resource audit. When we want to look at it from an external perspective, a very common technique that most of you would remember will be pestle analysis. What's our political, what's our economic, what's our social, what's our technological, what's our legal, and what's our environmental. When we take a look at all those factors, political, in the current climate, we know that there's so much impact on COVID on most political leaders. So it's either they are driving the agenda properly or not. And if they are not driving the agenda, then that is a threat to us as an organization. But what if COVID has enabled most organizations to get in touch with a lot of customers digitally? Technologically, it becomes an opportunity that we can exploit. So a SWOT analysis as part of our strategy planning can enable us understand our internal and our external environment. When we spend time researching into that, that can lead us into understanding whom we are serving. So as an organization, we've conducted our SWOT analysis, we've understood our internal, external, we've done more analysis on who our customer is. We also now have to focus on our internal organization. What's our value stream? Whom does it deliver it to? Does it deliver it to our internal customer, or does it deliver it to our external customer? All the work we've done with the SWOT analysis should help us identify all these key elements. So in terms of our internal customers, our internal members of staff, how are we serving them? When we deliver a new product to them, we need to make sure that everyone has got the right skills to use it. They can support our external customers, and they can also use it effectively to help us drive value to the organization. In terms of our external customers, I hope we'll all be putting our hands in our pocket now and be checking out a mobile phone. And I'm sure it won't be Nokia. Most of you would have either an iPhone or you would have a Samsung. Yep. If you don't serve your external customers properly, over time you'll be out of the market. And we've got the likes like Kodak
BlackBerry.
and many other organizations who've not served their external customers properly because they've not changed with the time or they've not changed with the external customers' needs. So think of your internal customers when you're conducting your strategy activities. Think of your external customers as well when you are conducting your strategy activities. But when we talk about strategy, for the product owner, here is a laundry list of strategies that the product owner has to take a look at. They need to look at the corporate strategy, organizational strategy, the financial strategy, market strategy, people strategy, and the list goes on. All these strategies form part of the organization. And personally, I think as a product owner, when you spend time helping the organization producing all of this, you would not be able to deliver value to your customers. So there are some strategies that we as product owners or product managers or part of the product management team will focus on. And I will share those strategies. But as a big organizations, here are a laundry list of strategies we could find in a big organization. And how does strategy help us as an organization? Here's a list of key strategic quotes I found on Google. It says strategy is a choice. Strategy means saying no to certain kind of strategy meets a goal if it's working, and if a strategy meets a target, it's a success. Or strategy is a pattern in a stream of decisions. So the strategy means a lot to many people. But as a product owner and a product management team, so from a product management perspective, you need to have a good understanding of your product strategy. What product are we delivering? Who is our customer? And how are we serving them? We also need, if it's a service as well, how are we delivering our service? And if we are serving a particular group of customers, what will be the key deliverables? What will be our key KPIs? I think what we've got is we've got someone who's joined us, and I would be the name and all the key details I see. The person has changed their details again. So what I will look at is if the person continues, I'll have to, yeah, I've seen the details. I would have to remove them from the conversation. Yeah. It happens often when you get people jumping into such Zoom calls. Thank you for joining, but we think you could be more respectful and decent with your activities. Okay. So in terms of the product owner, all these forms of strategies are the key strategies that you would need. But that would also be things like, let's look at it from our customers. Do we have internal customers or do we have external customers? If we have external customers, then this list really are things that you have to consider. What's your product strategy? What's your service strategy? What's your pricing strategy? As well, what is your growth strategy? If you mean to grow as an organization or as a product, you need to understand where the product is. So if we introduce a product to the market, it starts off as a new product. And in the Boston metrics, we'll say it's a wildcat. If the product becomes successful, then it's a star, and then it becomes a cash cow before it declines. And those are key things that you, the product owner, will be looking at for the product whilst the product is in the market, and you're constantly taking feedback from the product. So understanding your product life cycle from when it's an idea to when it's in the market are some of the things that, as a product owner who has external customers, they are things that you'll be focusing on. And when you drive all of this, what you tend to have is a well oiled, well functioning team and organization. You've got your strategy, you've got the leaders well aligned, you're taking action, management, which is middle management and senior management, all understand the goals and the plans have been put in place, and you are driving a well oiled machine. But developing strategies alone does not mean you'll be successful. We've had so many organizations develop a well planned strategy by bringing in a consultancy who would help them derive some of the strategic documents. I'll talk about some of the strategic documents. And when you have all the strategic documents, does that mean you'll be successful? In SAFE, we talk about such strategic documents in the portfolio layer. But as a product owner, product manager in an organization, your focus is to make sure that there's that clean, clear alignment with strategy and delivery. So next, let's touch on strategy execution. And with strategy execution, it's when we've developed the strategy and it's now time to deliver. Most people will say, William, we've got a beautiful strategy. It's 100-page documents. How many people will read a 100-page document? Or we've got a strategy. It's only with senior management, and it's only senior management who can help us understand the strategy. And I've also been to organizations where you ask product owners, product managers, have you come across the organizational strategy? William, that big fat document, how, if I spend time reading it, I'm not sure I'll be able to serve the internal or external customer and continuously deliver value. So a question will be, how do we make sure that our strategic outcomes helps the teams to engage? I'll touch on these three areas: alignment with strategy, prioritization to deliver strategy, and feedback to help us deliver value. When it comes to alignment with strategy, documents that I've encouraged teams and portfolio teams to use are the Balanced Business Scorecard, the Product Vision, and the Business Model Canvas. The Balanced Business Scorecard, the Product Vision, and the Business Model Canvas. So the Balanced Business Scorecard was developed by Kaplan and David Norton, and they spent some time talking about it as a performance measurement um, tool or model to help organizations. But in order for us to be able to apply it, they mentioned four domains on the Balanced Business Scorecard. We've got finance, customers, internal processes, and learning and growth. But how you put the Balanced Business Scorecard together is also a struggle for and a challenge for many organizations. So having used it for a while, I came across a template. I looked at it. At late, we made some changes to the template. We learned from it and we applied it over time. And it's something we go back to help us align our strategy discussions, which is our strategy planning, with our strategy execution. First, we talk about the vision. In terms of the vision, as an organization, you should be able to share your clear vision to all your stakeholders. If your vision can be shared to all your stakeholders, then everyone is able to align with the vision. And more than often, you have the vision on your laptops, or you have your vision on various organizational cards. But having the vision, sharing the vision, and aligning everyone to the vision is important. And this is at organizational level. Secondly, we need a clear mission statement as well. And with a balanced business scorecard, you could do it as a 3-pager, 1-pager. It's far better than the 100-page, 200-page strategy documents we do see. So here you've got clearly your vision, your mission, and then you've got your values. So with a balanced business scorecard, you summarize some of the key things in the 100-page document. And then we start talking about the themes. We're looking at finance, we're looking at customers, and then we're looking at internal processes. You kick off with your strategic priorities. And in SAFE, we call them the strategic themes. We want to increase revenue, and we want to be number one. We want to delight our customers. These strategic themes are linked to our objectives. We want to increase cash by XX amount. We want to increase revenue by XX amount. And then we will have critical success factors. Not everything is a critical success factor for organizations. We need to be sure what our success factor is. Yeah. So if we know what our critical success factor is, we are able to focus on it in the next quarter or in the next program increment. So for our critical success factors, we will then go on to having KPIs for our critical success factors. And with the KPIs for our critical success factors, these are key things that we will measure as we go along. And it's things that okay. It tells us quite a lot about hacking. Security is everything. Thank you so much. And then you will be looking at our project initiatives. From our project initiatives, we're looking at what are we going to deliver as a project and what is the budget for it. So definitely our balanced business scorecard is a great tool that would help us to deliver value. Next, here is a full sample template that you could always, if you here's a template. If you want a copy, please do send an email and we'll definitely send you a copy of the balanced business scorecard template. And when prepared fully, here is another copy. That's how it would look like. So the balanced business scorecard is a good tool for alignment. What can the product owner use next for alignment? As a product owner, you can use the product vision for who there is that provides online. So the product vision document is a good document that as a product owner, you can draw on from the balanced business scorecard. What products are we focusing on? Create a product vision and start sharing it with the teams. And it will help the teams as well see from a clear picture what we are working on. Next, we have the balanced business scorecard. The balanced business scorecard, so the business model canvas. The business model canvas is also a very good tool that as a product management team, you can use to understand what your product is all about. So in terms of the business model canvas, it's a visual representation and it shares on the front office and the back office activities. In terms of the front office, we're looking at value proposition, customer relationships, channels. And then when we look at the back office, we're looking at key activities. We're also looking at key resources, our partners, and cost structures. This document will help you with strategy alignment when you have them as a product owner, product manager. Three things I said we'll be looking at in terms of product strategy execution. We'll be looking at strategy alignment, and then we will also be looking at prioritization to deliver value. And then we would finish off with feedback. Yeah. So now let's look at prioritization to deliver value. Zane or whoever it is, Brown, thank you so much for joining. But joining to cause just to be a problem is not acceptable. Okay. Thank you, Nicole Brown. You don't have to be here if you don't want to be here. So, in terms of prioritization, we've got a few other models. We'll use the Moscow, which is a good prioritization tool. You can change your name to BBBP, but it's a shame you can join to do this wherever you're joining from. And then we're looking at 100 points method, which was developed by Dean Leffenwell. We've also got Kanu analysis and the weighted shortest job first. Yeah. From those, these are good tools that can be used by the product management team for prioritization. Here is the Kanu analysis that some teams would use. And I'm also a big fan of the weighted shortest job first. But in terms of the Kanu analysis, when you have your set of features, you want to prioritize your features and put them in some key places. So when you have your features in this zone, it means you are satisfying your customer. But if you have your features in these areas, which will be feedback you will get from your customers, it means that you are not really giving them what they really expect from you. As well, some of your for your features, there are some basic ones. It's like when I have an iPhone, I should be able to make a call. That's a basic feature. Yeah. I should be able to what? Send a text message. That's a basic feature. Or I should be able to take a picture. Those used to be some of the, I would say, picture taking was a delighter when it was introduced. But currently, we would say that picture taking is a basic for most people. And a delighter for me now is when I pick up my iPhone and I wear my face mask, I should be able to what? Unlock my mobile phone. But currently, when I wear a face mask and I look at my mobile phone, I'm unable to unlock it. And that would be a good delighter if you had your mobile phone. So it's a feature that I would definitely recommend to the skilled to Apple whilst they're building. It's a feature I recommend to Apple on their roadmap. So in terms of feedback, there are these areas of feedback that would always support you, your product management team. Be looking at customer feedback. Customer feedback will be during when you're developing the product. When the product goes onto the market, you will also be receiving customer feedback. As a product manager, product owner, constantly you are refining your backlog and making sure that your backlog is helping you align with your customers. So constantly you're speaking to them, gathering requirements, refining the requirements. So customer feedback will be great. Strategic feedback. When we talk about strategic feedback, in terms of strategic feedback, as an organization, we have to align with the organization strategy. So you, the product owner, will be having conversations with the strategic team, with the leadership team, and making sure that the features you are building aligns with the organization's needs. Team feedback. The team who will be building the solution will constantly be providing you with feedback. And that feedback, as members of the product management team, would help you build the right product and deliver the right product to the customers. We will have stakeholder feedback. Stakeholders are the people who will be involved in the product delivery, and they could be part of the operations team because they will be using the product. It's so important that such people are invited into various events for them to give you feedback. And I'll mention some events, the retrospectives, the PI is the PI planning is an opportunity to get some feedback from stakeholders. As well, you could also get feedback from the inspect and adapt sessions. Finally, process feedback. When you're building a product as a product owner and a product management team, constantly you should be getting feedback from the team on how the solution is being built. So you'll be looking at the infrastructure, you'll be looking at the applications, you'll be looking at their daily processes, and all the feedback you get can also help you focus on delivering value to the customer. Here are some of the artifacts and some of the events. Importantly, your product backlog also serves as a good place to get your feedback. You take your product backlog into backlog refinement sessions, and during the backlog refinement sessions, you are able to get the stakeholders, the team who are involved to help you refine your backlog and constantly deliver value. What would I do if I'm Angela, who's just been employed as a product manager and I have a product management team? I'll align the strategy to the product vision. So I'll need a good understanding of what the strategy is. Then I'll prioritize with the teams to deliver the minimum viable product, which will include your various stakeholders. And I would constantly be the voice of the customer. When I do this, who would benefit from all of this? The organization will benefit if I'm able to align strategy to execution. Our internal and external customers would also benefit if we align strategy to execution. But if we don't align our strategy, if we don't get feedback, and if we don't engage with the right group of stakeholders, we don't tend to deliver feedback. As a key takeaway from this particular session, what have I been talking about? I've been reflecting on strategy planning, and I looked at the internal and external tools. And though I focused on SWOT analysis is just one of the tools that would help you with strategy planning. And when I looked at strategy execution, I focused on alignment, feedback, and making sure that we prioritize our products. All these are great tools for you as a product management team to help deliver value to your customer. And finally, always use feedback from all the stages to help you drive product progress. Yeah. Use feedback from all the stages to help you drive product progress. And I would like to thank everyone who's joined us today. And for those who've joined for some weird reasons, we welcome you, and we really don't shy away from you interrupting our sessions. It helps us learn, and next time we'll manage your engagement. So thank you, everyone, and it's a real pleasure to share on strategy planning and strategy execution. I'll hand you over back to Gina.
Wow, this is mind-blowing session. Thank you so much, every one of you, the panelists. I want to say thank you, and let's start the discussion. Please keep putting your question on the chat box. I want to say a big thank you to Andrew, and also to William. That is amazing. It's mind-blowing. So let's start the questions. Please keep putting your questions on the channel, please. So let's start the discussion with the panel. I have one question here. The first one is, how do you go into a data product owner role? Please, if you can answer that question.
One of the, I think Andy may have touched on this. At least the way I did it was, you could go through the business analyst role because there are skills that overlap between a product owner and a business analyst, especially around things like requirement gathering, stakeholder engagement, and understanding of the domain. I think that's what Andy said, and I agree with. And also understanding of the technology as well. You don't have to have the deep technology skills, but you definitely need to understand it. So you need to understand both sides, both the technical and also the business side, and be able to engage both audiences, so to speak.
Okay, thank you so much. With regards to this question goes to Andy. How can I enter into a product owner role without experience? Not having an experience as a product owner, or me switching over from one field, one career to become a product owner. How does that work?
Yeah, we see, as organizations start to implement SAFe, we see a lot of people moving from their existing roles into new roles. But although those new roles may have slightly different job descriptions or different titles, they certainly make use of existing skills that are already there in the organization. So good candidates for the product owner role, again, we talked about the business analyst, but also subject matter experts, maybe individuals who have been working in marketing with close connections to the customers, maybe people who have been working in project or program manager roles. So one part of it is recognizing that there are skills that you may have already that overlap. And then the second thing, of course, is giving those people the knowledge they need to be successful. So when we talk about going through an agile transformation, the worst thing to do is to ask your people to take part in these new roles without giving them the knowledge and the skills they need to do them successfully. So whether it's product owner training, whether it's shadowing an existing product owner, whether it's allowing them the opportunity, we were talking earlier about some of the great online resources that you can access these days. There's great opportunities to grow and learn more than we've ever had before, particularly through accessing these things remotely. And the organizations just need to support them in doing these things successfully. But one thing I would say in summary is a lot of organizations will create communities of practice. So create a community of practice in the company where product owners can come together, who all might be new to the role. They can discuss and share ideas and come up with solutions, and also see whether you can join a wider product owner community of practice outside your company. There's some great networks out there where lots of learning and sharing happens as well.
Okay. So you mean as a program manager, you might have some transferable skills if you want to go into product, being a product manager?
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be transferable skills from lots of different roles. Some roles might have that domain knowledge we talked about. Some roles may have an understanding of how to coordinate and manage lots of moving parts. Some roles may have a good understanding of the customer already. So try and understand which parts you have the strength in and which parts you want to grow. And those places where you want to grow, look to develop your skills there. But certainly, I love the idea of building a network of product owners who can support each other. That's always very effective.
But if I have the knowledge and I don't have the experience, because most of the time you're looking for a job and they ask you, they want 10 years experience and you've not worked in that capacity for that number of years. How do you go about that?
Well, I mean, I think there's two things there. I think sometimes there are expectations which are unrealistic when people are being brought into new roles. But don't forget, what is it easier to teach? Is it easier to teach the activities you need to fulfill to be a product owner, or is it easier to teach the domain knowledge? If you've been working in a bank for 10 or 15 years and you've got deep domain knowledge around financial practices and ways of working, I would suggest that that is the real skill set that you promote. The product owner skills and how you bring those to bear may be easier to learn than the domain knowledge. So I think new product owners should emphasize the deep domain knowledge they had, and that may help them to get a foot in the door as they start to develop some of the additional skills around the actual product owner practices. But I also realize, Regina, that it is difficult when people start off.
Yeah, absolutely.
Typically, the best situation is where the organization that you're currently working at is starting to explore agile ways of working, and you can move into those roles in a safe environment, learning as you go.
Good. All right. Thank you. I think there was a question in the chat which you've already answered, but let me just read it out. It says, with the separation of product manager and product owner roles, how do we avoid the disadvantage of hands-off? And how can the product owner effectively act as customer representative when he or she has not been part of the discovery with the client?
Yeah, that was a great question from Henrik. And I think two things. So I think, if there was an extra slide I would like to put in my presentation, it might look a little bit like we've got all of our products and solutions. We've got our products that we're currently developing. We've got the ones that are coming next. And then we've got the Horizon 3 things that are perhaps a year or two down the road. The product owner who's helping to execute and deliver the Horizon 1 opportunities is absolutely getting feedback from the customer. They're building it, they're delivering early opportunities for feedback, they're inviting customers to the system demos, they've maybe got a community of customers that they can show what it is that they're developing and the progress they're making. What the product owners will struggle to do because of their time and their constraints is also keep an eye on the Horizon 2 and the Horizon 3 opportunities. So that's really where the product manager is fitting in. What is coming next? What is the roadmap going to look like in 6 and 9 and 12 months? Where are the future opportunities going to come from? So I certainly didn't mean to give the impression that product owners can never have a relationship with the customer, but they're more focused on feedback on the actual solution being built rather than things that we may be developing or exploring for future opportunities in 2 or 3 years' time. The other thing that Henrik mentioned was the handoffs. You're absolutely right, Henrik. To avoid the handoffs, or to minimize them at least, and this is how we do it at Scaled Agile, we try and bring the product owners and product managers, and my role at Scaled Agile is the product manager for the framework team. So we try and bring the group together when we're making some of these key decisions. So when we're getting to the point that we're elaborating the features, or we're prioritizing the program backlog, or we're defining the roadmap, if we can bring the product owners into that discussion, then we're working as an effective team rather than one group doing the work and handing it off to the other group. So I think opportunities for collaboration like that can really help.
Good. Thank you, Andy. And Henrik also asked a question. He said, you talked about how the product owner should ensure that details are in place when the team takes a future from the product manager. Isn't that a very waterfall way of thinking?
Yeah, so another good question from Henrik. So, one thing I talked about is how important it is for the product owner to be asking those critical questions of the product manager to make sure they understand, and therefore the team will understand the features that are being asked of them. At that point, we're not adding all the detail, we're not creating the stories. All I simply meant was that we're clarifying the acceptance criteria and what are the benefit hypotheses for those features. So Henrik's right. If we were breaking it down into all the detail, it would be too much upfront work. But this was more just a higher level clarification of what is the benefit and the acceptance criteria before we start socializing the features with the teams.
Thank you, Andy. This question goes to William. Does the product owner require strategic knowledge to be competent in their role?
Yes, I think Andy mentioned it, and Chi also talked about it. You need to have a good understanding of what the data strategy is, which is important when delivering a product. But as an organization, we are led by our strategy. Without a clear understanding of the strategy, we won't identify which particular products to work on. And when we have a good understanding of the strategy, it builds into the portfolio. What are our critical success factors? What are our objectives? What will make us stay in a blue ocean over a red ocean? All organizations want to be there to win. And if you don't have a good understanding of where you are going, then you wouldn't be able to execute your strategy with your products. So as a product owner, you need a fair understanding of strategy as you improve and grow on your role. Yeah.
Thank you. I reckon this will go to Andy because you talked about you talked about the Agile framework and the Agile release train. Somebody wants to know, Francisco, how do I combine old legacy software with modern ones in terms of Agile? I mean, in my experience, we cannot plan efficiently our activities due to waterfall dependency. So how do you now sort of combine this? You have the old legacy system and you now have the new software. How do you put this in place?
Yeah, I mean, I think Francisco has described the problem perfectly, and it's not an easy problem to solve. If we do have dependencies on legacy systems that have much longer lead times, maybe they're being supported by suppliers that we don't have direct control over, then what we'll do in our PI planning is effectively take some key milestones of when we can make changes to those systems and do our best to plan around them. But when we think about Agile at scale, of course, there's a people part of it and there's a process part, but there's also a huge technology part as well. And it's only really when we effectively tackle some of these legacy systems, think about how we might decompose them, maybe break them down into services that the teams can access, provide the same functionality in different ways, that we're really going to be effective in delivering value quicker. A lot of organizations have this challenge that there's a big central monolithic system that's very hard to change or make any increments to, and that becomes the bottleneck in the process. So there's no easy answer for Francisco. What I would say, though, is if we're doing an Agile implementation at scale, we need to consider the technical and architectural questions alongside the process and people questions. because often they're the harder things to solve. And if we can get those right, the benefits can be vast.
Thank you, Andy. I think this next question from Asa might be for you, Andy, or for William. They want to know, how can we provide time delivery if resources are constrained? You talk about collaboration and they have constrained time. How do we now provide these resources?
Go ahead, William, if you'd like.
Well, for all organizations, we are limited by time, cost, and the schedule to deliver. And if we are limited by resources, prioritization becomes the key thing. So I talked about prioritization as one of the components of strategy execution. If you can prioritize your delivery process, prioritize your minimum viable products, then you can use the limited resources. And if you deliver value for an organization, whether for the internal staff or for the external staff, that value can translate into funds. Then you can start employing more people. But if you fail to deliver value with your limited staff members and you're not delivering the MVP, then you will continue to have that limited resources. So prioritization, delivering value, and making sure that that value translates into funds, then you could recruit more people. Andy, have you got something to add?
I agree with everything you say. I mean, actually having a constraint is not necessarily a bad thing in terms of the conversations it will drive, because if you are constrained in terms of capacity, it'll force you to have those difficult conversations around what is the most important thing to do now. And the danger when we have plentiful capacity is we start thinking about keeping the teams busy and we find work for them to do. So if we're limited, as William said, we're going to prioritize ruthlessly. We're going to work out what are the valuable things to do now. And one of the most difficult parts of a product manager or product owner job is actually deciding what are the things we're not going to do. And even what are the things that we've maybe started that are turning out not to be valuable that we're going to stop. So we've got to be really tough on that. One other thing to say, though, is it also takes a lot of effort to sustain a product. So when you've released a product into the market, the work doesn't stop there. In fact, it may be 2 times as much effort to sustain it over the next 5 or 10 years or whatever its life cycle is. So we need to also plan for how we're going to maintain existing products in terms of capacity, as well as just developing new products. And that also takes a lot of time away from the teams.
Thank you, Andy. Earlier on, when you started this conversation, you spoke about the difference between the product manager and also the product owner. The product manager been focusing on the strategy and the product owner focusing on the tactics and the execution. David wants to know, what's the difference between a product owner and a product manager, and must a product owner also be an SME, a subject matter
Yeah, I
expert?
mean, you summarized it really well there, Regina. So, we have this longer term strategy. Maybe it's 1, 2, 3 years. There's a direction of travel that the company is taking. Someone needs to own and maintain that and be responsible for the return on investment of the solutions we deliver. That's how we see the product manager. The product owner is, of course, helping us to deliver the valuable solutions today. They can be combined if the solutions are small enough, but at scale, it can be beneficial creating a team with those 2 separate roles. And then this SME question, the subject matter expert, all the solutions we're developing these days have a technology aspect to them that is inevitable. And when we start breaking down our technical solutions, there are going to be parts of those solutions that are very complex and require some domain knowledge or expertise. So maybe if you've got 10 or 12 agile release trains, there might be a couple of those teams, there might be a couple of those agile teams who are building very complex parts of the system where it would be useful having a product owner who had some knowledge and subject matter expertise around that particular domain. There may be other teams that actually are building things where the SME and deep domain knowledge isn't quite so required. So I think you have to take each case on its merits, but just keep in mind when you get down to that level of detail, there are some very technical activities taking place there that may benefit from someone who has some domain expertise.
Okay. Thank you so much, Andy. This question goes to William. How do I attend a product owner or a product manager course? What does that entail?
Thank you, Gina. We are a bronze partner, and we are proud to be a bronze partner of Skilled Agile. We thank Andy for joining us for today's session. So, when you go onto our website, leanicontechnology.co.uk, we've got courses and we've got teams who are available to have a chat with you and to help you select the right course. We are mindful, it's not one size fits all. I had someone coming in and said, I want to take a course. I think I want to do the Scrum Master course. Upon having conversations with them, we realized they were much suited for the product owner course. Or someone coming in for the safer teams, and we realized they were much suited for um, a Scrum Master course. So we try to make sure that we provide your needs and we listen to our customers.
Good. So, what will it cost me if I want to do one of those courses then?
We've got prices on our website, and just like a product, our prices vary. I think with data that we get from the website, that as Chi talked about, once we analyze the data, draw some insights from the data, our prices also we do have discounts on our prices based on the seasons. So come onto the website. All the costs are on the website, and if I give you a quote today, you might go on the website and the price is much more favorable. So have a look at the website and definitely uh, talk to our teams and we would engage with you.
Thank you. So, if, for example, probably I work with I'm an healthcare professional, and I want to move from my field into product manager role, how long would that take me? Would there be a system in place to sort of mentor me and lead me through that roadmap to achieve my goals?
Uh, yes, we do have a cohort course that we do run, and the cohort course, which we also look at data that Chi talked about. We emphasize much on data, and Chi said data is the new oil. So understanding that um, data bit is quite important. So we start off with requirements engineering. Andy mentioned requirements engineering. Then we talked. We have the product owner course, and then we have a data with SQL. These three combinations with a few interview practice sessions would get you ready to have a conversation. And whether you are in house or you're looking for a new role, we think that the product owner role has perfect harmony if you have a good understanding of what strategy, what data is, get an understanding of what the product owner does. So we do the product owner, product manager course. And then finally, the product owner elicits requirements. And that's a key tool for the business analyst. So we run the requirements engineering session to embed your understanding on how to elicit requirements using workshops, observations, interviews, research, document analysis. And that gives you that firm foundation to go into an interview and have that fruitful conversation. And I know Andy will add to the conversation. If you're a product owner or manager and you can't elicit requirements, what could that lead to, Andy or Chi?
Yeah, I'll just jump in quickly. I think the next question is for Chi anyway. But yeah, it's an important skill. You're absolutely right, because the clarity of an understanding of what we're building, we're trying to build this connection, right? All the way from the strategy through the vision, the roadmaps, the features, the stories, all the way through to execution. And to get that good connection, we need clarity at every single step. And one of the most important things, and the reason we do events like PI planning, is to create alignment around the organization. So all of these things connect and support each other. And if you've got the good skills at describing the requirements, it makes sure we're maximizing the value. There's good alignment and understanding, and we're all moving in the same direction. Absolutely, William. Agreed completely.
Thank you, Andy. Just a question here for Chi. You've talked about data as a product. Someone wants to know how Francisco wants to know how to demonstrate in a strategic and paratic way to the business the value of a future. How much time should take a tracking to prove that a specific future is valuable?
Hello, can you hear me, Regina?
Yes, I can hear now.
Okay. All right. So I think what the person is, because I'm reading the question as well, they're saying to demonstrate in a
Yes,
strategic and
yes.
practical way. I think he's trying to say to the business the value of the
Mm-hmm.
feature, how much time should is taking,
Takes
tracking,
in tracking.
approve. I'm not too sure what the person was trying to ask there, but I'll just answer what I think I understand by the question,
Mm.
and it really is down to the what you release in terms of functionality. So because a lot of these discussions are happening, and you're carrying the customer along, I think that in itself is a practical way of kind of demonstrating it to them. Obviously, these stakeholders or customers are busy with their work, so you can't be pulling them into every meeting. So you have to have, when you've reached a point in terms of you know something tangible that you have developed or delivered, then you have a session with them and then you go through it. And then in terms of the timing, I think that's just down to what it's down to deadlines at the end of the day. When you speak to your customer or your stakeholder and they're saying they need this, we all know time is money. So the sooner, the better. One thing about stakeholders is that they're always going to say to you that, it's urgent and they need it yesterday. But you need to really get to the bottom of it and see when it really is that they need it for, and then work to that time. But I always say that you want to under promise and over deliver. So if they're saying to you that they need it in, say for instance, they need this functionality, you know, in a week's time. You want to negotiate for more than a week and then try to deliver in under a week. And that way you keep the customer happy.
Thank you, Sid. That's awesome. Someone wants to know, some company require to some companies requiring to employ a product owner may prefer to employ someone with a BA experience so as to fill in the gap when needed. Does your training or course also cover BA and product owner, or what will you advise in this situation? That will be for William, and I know we cover BA and product owner courses.
Yep, the requirements engineering part of it covers deeply the BA skills. Uh, if you're on a product owner course, it's not worth It's worth I shouldn't say it's not. It's worth understanding what the business analyst does, because in the business analyst course, we start from strategy, understand the key role of the business analyst, talk about requirements, refine the requirements. But focusing on the requirements course, we make sure that you get a good understanding of the skill sets required to elicit, analyze, document, and manage your requirements as a product owner. Most product owners who get appointed as from subject matter as who get appointed into PO roles, having come as subject matter experts or skilled people within certain areas, over time realize that the role as a product owner is quite daunting if you don't have the right skill set. So requirements engineering courses I've recommended to many organizations, and they've gotten their product owners on the requirements engineering course. And that has saved the teams, because if a requirement is not clear, the teams can't deliver value. So let's keep that in mind. As a product owner, when you join our course, we make sure that you get that clarity in requirement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, William. Is there anyone with any other question? I'm just looking through the chat, boss, and it seems that every questions have been answered. Hmm, okay, I think I think most questions have been answered. Brilliant, fantastic. Okay, well, I've just checked through. We don't have any pending question. Or if is there anybody that have any questions for the panelists? Anybody that
I
has
think a
question
few
for the
questions
speaker?
have come in the chat, Regina. I'm looking at it
Let me.
now.
Okay, I saw four new questions now. Let me just see. Um. Okay. Somebody just said, "How easy is it to transition? Probably, I want to believe from one career pathway to another one. How easy it is to transition?
Yeah, I think he meant BA to
Oh,
product owner.
yeah.
If I to answer that, I would say first you need a clear roadmap, and the roadmap from where you are to where you want to
To
be
product
will
owner, yeah.
determine how persistent you want to be, and then how willing you want to invest your time. So, these two key things, a roadmap, persistence, would help you get on that journey. I could say 3 months, I could say 4 months, I could say 6 months. But if you lack a roadmap and persistence, you would get off track and you wouldn't pursue it. Because I've had many people ask me, William, I want to go on the product owner course. I want to be a product owner. Applying for jobs as a product owner is not the easiest task. It requires commitment, persistence, and perseverance. So I'm not going to say it's easy, but the remuneration is something that you go to the bank laughing. Yeah.
Can I add to what you're saying, William? Because I happen to have done a similar transition from business intelligence to product owner. There were a lot of transferable skills, but I think on the foundation, because I was doing business intelligence and it's data, and the product owner role is a data product owner, so you can see there's something in common there. Also, in addition, there are transferable skills like Andy mentioned and yourself, William, mentioned. So things like requirement gathering, stakeholder engagement, things like that. So if one is to do like a product owner course and add that to all of those existing skills, then you put yourself in good stead to get a product owner role. Now, I'm not saying, like William has highlighted, it's not going to be easy. A lot of people feel that, they're proud of the work they've done, and and they should be. However, that might not be what the hiring manager is looking for, at that point in time. So you really need to be patient. You really need to seek out the right role. You might not get that big salary, off the bat. However, if you keep going, you should be able, someone will give you a chance. I believe so.
So when you made mention of that big salary, that comes to mind. What's the minimum, um, like say minimum wages for product manager or product owner? Minimum, maybe daily rate or annual rates. Do you have any clue, or it
Well,
doesn't matter?
I would say it depends on
Experience or
sectors and experience, because in the banking sector,
mm,
they pay very high. In some other sectors, they pay very low. But if you get that knowledge, skill sets, and then with a product owner training, product owner, product management training, I recommend the Skilled Agile framework. I've looked at all the other um, agile courses, and I'm a big I wouldn't say I'm biased, but I've seen the Skilled Agile framework much more holistic, and it helps you understand all the key things you need to know as a product owner, product manager when you join a team. So with this background knowledge and skill set, you are able to move into organizations, start as a junior product owner, and then move up. The product owner role can go into an executive role when you take a long-term roadmap view of your career. So my key thing for saying roadmap is the product owner role is a great role, but what next is the big question. So constantly keep planning on what next.
Can I add to what you're saying, William, please? Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
hello?
Yeah. So in addition to what William said, because I happen to also kind of have a look at these things. And so, like William said, it depends, right? It depends on how senior you are, how junior you're entering the market, right? So if you have, you could be in a sector and you could be on 25, 30K, even 35K. And you could be in another sector and you have all this experience and you could be on 100K plus. It just depends. But I think what is more important is knowing your entry point. You might be able to enter at a point where it's 5 years experience, and what you need to bridge the gap between what you know and what you don't know is not too much. However, you don't want to enter and you just can't cope. You're out of your depth. So that's the main thing, is just understanding where the entry point. I would say personally, in my experience, I would say don't even focus on the salary. Just focus on getting the role first, and skilling up, bridging that gap, that skills gap, and then once that has been done, maybe it take a year, maybe a couple years, and then you can then now make another move. So what do you say to that, William? Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Do you think there is a lot of job role there for product owner and product manager?
Yes, I think so.
Andy, what do you think, Andy?
Well, one thing I was thinking as you guys were talking is we've been getting these questions about people moving into these new roles, but there's really two scenarios that I observe. One is where they voluntarily move into the roles, which normally ends in a very positive situation. But of course, we also observe sometimes that people are asked to move into roles that they don't necessarily choose or willingly do themselves. So, one thing I've seen that I was just going to share with everyone, we did a talk about a year ago at the SAFE Summit about exactly this topic, moving from existing roles to new roles. And one of the things that one of our customers did that was very interesting is they opened up the roles inside their organization, and they allow people from any part of the organization to put themselves forward for it. So rather than saying all BAs become product owners, or all SMEs become product owners, or all program managers become product managers, they actually advertise the roles internally and let people who thought they'd have a good match to the skills put themselves forward. And that way they found candidates who were driven to succeed in the role rather than allocating people to the roles. So I think there's a big difference there as well as to whether it's a choice or whether it's something that is perhaps enforced on people. And of course, if it's a choice and you're passionate about it, it's more likely it'll be successful. So rather than trying to find a one-to-one match, if you're trying to get a group of new product owners, maybe some of them come from business analysts, but maybe some of them come from other places as well. So it's not always the same one-to-one match for every single person filling the role. So just wanted to share that, William, because that was an interesting observation from one customer.
Thank you so much. Gina?
So somebody just asked, will the presentation be available to attendees?
Yes, the presentation will be available to all attendees, and I'll have a chat with the speakers for them to look at their slides. And if they want to make the slides available, we'll send them as an email to everyone who's attended.
Thank you so much. Is there any question? I can see any other question. If there is no other question, then we're coming to the close of this wonderful session. And I want to say thank you all for joining this session. It's been a pleasure to host you all on this session. It's been wonderful having Andy, she and William talk to us about product owner and product manager. Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you all for coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gina.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.